Welcome back to our podcast where the stories behind the screen are told with all the respect and nostalgia they deserve. In 1985, the film Anne of Green Gables premiered and left a deep and lasting impression on audiences, with its story of the bright and imaginative orphan girl Anne Shirley. The work was not only a resounding artistic success, but also became an unforgettable part of an entire generation's memory. 39 years have passed, and the cast that once captivated us now tell very different stories. Some have died tragically, some have struggled with illness, while others have achieved great success. What really happened behind the scenes when everyone thought they were destined for greatness? Let's discover their real names and celebrate the legacy they left behind. Colleen Dewhurst as Marilla Cuthbert. In Anne of Green Gables, 61-year-old Colleen Dewhurst played Marilla Cuthbert, a stern woman whose appearance belied a deep love moving millions of viewers. This success became the final laurel in her illustrious career. However, fame was never enough to hide the deep-rooted wounds in her private life. Born on June 3, 1924, in Montreal, Canada. Her childhood was marked by the separation of her parents. The family breakup forced little Colleen to grow up without love and warmth. As an adult, she sought redemption in love, but instead encountered tragedy, married twice and then divorced from actor George C. Scott. Her life became a series of heartaches. Accusations of infidelity, heated arguments, and violent conflicts turned her marriage into a battlefield where she had to face heartache. The breakups of her marriages left Colleen with deep emotional scars, and the tragedy was compounded by illness. In her final years, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Tragically, she refused medical treatment due to her religious beliefs, which left. What is most profound is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Marilla Cuthbert was strangely woven into her destiny on screen. Marilla was a strong woman, a steadfast pillar for Anne and Matthew, who found love and purpose late in life. In real life, Colleen Dewhurst was also a strong woman, a titan of the stage, but she never found the peace in love that she so desperately craved. However, that tumultuous journey had to come to an abrupt end. On August 22, 1991, Colleen Dewhurst breathed her last at her home in South Salem, New York, ending a painful 67-year life. Her fortune was estimated at $5 million, but that was a small sum for a woman who lived, loved, and suffered until the very end. Megan Follows as Anne Shirley. Megan Follows beat out over 3,000 other candidates to win the role of Anne Shirley in the 1985 television adaptation at just 17 years old. Her image of the headstrong, dreamy, and fiery redhead became instantly iconic for an entire generation. The role not only catapulted Megan to fame, but also thrust her into a spotlight she couldn't easily escape, turning her youth into a whirlwind of both brilliance and suffocation. Born on March 14, 1968 in Toronto, Canada, into an artistic family where all three of her siblings pursued creative careers. What seemed like a perfect and fulfilling childhood turned into chaos when she got married. In 1991, she married photographer Christopher Porter, and they had 2 children, Lilla Ann and Russell. But just 5 years later, the marriage fell apart, leaving Megan a single mother. The pressures of her job, coupled with the looming shadow of Anne, Shirley led to a series of mental crises, leaving her with depression and low self-esteem. The broken marriage left her not only with emotional scars. What is most profound is the strange connection between the role and her life. While on screen, Anne was an orphan who found a family and happiness, a person who always optimistically overcame all difficulties in real life. Megan Follows had to face breakdown and severe psychological pressure. The role gave her everything, but also nearly took everything from her. Today, at 57 years old, Megan Follows remains active in the entertainment industry. She continues to act, direct, and produce art projects, gradually emerging from Anne's shadow. Her net worth is estimated at around $2 million, thanks largely to her film, television, and voiceover work. Her journey is a testament to relentless effort and the ability to overcome adversity to find herself again. Richard Farnsworth as Matthew Cuthbert. At the age of 65, Richard Farnsworth played Matthew Cuthbert. The image of the gentle, quiet, but compassionate farmer has become an immortal symbol of the small screen. Matthew's warm gaze and quiet sacrifice make viewers believe that Farnsworth put his whole heart into the role. However, behind this gentle image lies a long and painful life that few can imagine. Richard William Farnsworth was born on September 1, 1920 in Los Angeles, California, to a working-class family. He spent his youth as a stuntman, risking his life in intense scenes for more than 3 decades to make a living. His personal life seemed to stabilize when he married Margaret Hill in 1937 and had 2 children, but nearly half a century of happiness was shattered. In 1985, when Margaret died of illness, this loss dealt a devastating blow to Farnsworth's soul, turning his later life into a series of dark and lonely days even at the height of his career. Before his mental pain subsided, fate dealt him an even harsher test. In 1999, Farnsworth was diagnosed with prostate cancer, which had quickly spread to his bones. The excruciating pain gradually weakened his body, and his spirit sank into despair. The man who, what is most profound is the complete contrast with his fate. On screen, Matthew Cuthbert was a man who found joy and peace with Anne, a gentle soul who lived a simple life. In real life, Richard Farnsworth was a man who had lived a life full of physical danger and ultimately had to endure the utmost pain both physically and emotionally. However, that painful journey had to come to an end. On October 6, 2000, Richard Farnsworth decided to end his painful journey with a gunshot wound to the head at his ranch in New Mexico. Farnsworth's net worth was estimated at $3 million, but his greatest legacy is the memory of a man who lived, loved, and suffered until the very end. Patricia Hamilton as Rachel Lynde. Patricia Hamilton burst onto the screen at the age of 47 as Rachel Lynde. The sharp-witted, talkative, yet incredibly caring neighbor became a familiar face not only in the series but also in the film Road to Avonlea. Her illustrious career and prestigious awards made her an icon of Canadian theater and television. But behind Rachel Lynde's steady voice and proud gaze lies a private life filled with painful wounds that audiences rarely see. Patricia Ruth Hamilton was born on April 27, 1937, in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. She fell in love with and married actor Leslie Carlson in 1966, but their marriage ended in divorce a few years later, leaving Patricia to raise her son, Ben Carlson, alone. Her loneliness was compounded by the pain of a miscarriage, a tragedy that haunted her throughout her life. Behind the scenes, the strong stage woman often went through periods of emotional exhaustion and financial hardship, clinging to her work as her only means of survival. The wounds of lost love were compounded by years of failing health. Patricia Hamilton was known for her tendency to overexert herself, devoting herself so much to the stage that she neglected her own health. What is most profound is the complete contrast with her fate. On screen, Rachel Lynde was a strong woman, always in control of everything, and a pillar of the community. In real life, Patricia Hamilton was a woman who had to silently endure breakdown, loss, and physical pain. However, that tumultuous journey had to come to an end. On April 30, 2023, just 3 days after her 86th birthday, Patricia Hamilton breathed her last. In a nursing home in Stratford, Ontario, her estate was estimated at $1 million, a paltry sum compared to the spiritual legacy she left behind. Jonathan Crombie as Gilbert Blythe. At the age of 19, Jonathan Crombie was cast as Gilbert Blythe. His portrayal of a smart, gentle, and devoted young man melted the hearts of millions, making Gilbert a model of pure love for a generation. The aura of the role propelled Crombie to new heights, but it also cast a shadow that made his later artistic career difficult and hard to escape. Jonathan Crombie was born on October 12, 1966, in Toronto, Ontario, into a distinguished family. His father, David Crombie, served as mayor of Toronto and later as a federal cabinet minister. However, his private life belied his prestigious lineage. Crombie never married, had no children, and for many years chose a quiet life. He only came out as gay in his 40s, but years of secrecy left him with a deep loneliness. His career after Gilbert never reached new heights, forcing him to confront both financial difficulties and a deep lack of self-confidence. The quiet moments of Crombie's life became haunting. He often lived alone, turning to stage plays and minor roles, but never found a defining milestone like Gilbert had. The public continued to call him Gil, but the association sometimes trapped him. His private life, his isolation, and what is most profound is the complete contrast with the character's fate on screen. Gilbert Blythe was a young man who won the love of his life and had a bright future. In real life, Jonathan Crombie was a man who lived in solitude with a less than thriving career. However, that promising journey had to come to an abrupt end. On April 15, 2015, Jonathan Crombie died suddenly in New York City at the age of 48 from a stroke, a sudden and shocking death that stunned fans. His family decided to donate his organs, turning the tragedy into a final act of kindness. For a man who lived a quiet life, his net worth was estimated at just $500,000, far less than the memorable legacy he left behind as Gilbert Blythe. Marilyn Lightstone as Miss Muriel Stacy. At the age of 45, Marilyn Lightstone appeared in the film as Muriel Stacy, a modern, strict but deeply humane schoolteacher who brings new life to the village of Avonlea. The image of a determined woman who challenged outdated conventions became unforgettable for audiences everywhere. But beyond this brilliant role, Marilyn's real life also contained personal pain that the spotlight could never fully reveal. Marilyn Lightstone was born on June 28, 1940, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. She grew up in a Jewish family where her childhood was marked by difficult expectations and strict discipline. The young girl sought liberation through knowledge and art, but deep down, she always felt a sense of loneliness and a longing for understanding. This loveless childhood left her with a fragile soul, and later at every step of her career, Marilyn shone on stage, but deep down she still carried an unshakable loneliness. Marilyn married in the hope of regaining the stability she had lacked in her childhood. Instead, her first marriage ended in divorce, leaving scars that never fully healed. The separation plunged her into years of solitude, where the more fame she enjoyed on stage and screen, what is most profound is the complete contrast with the character's fate on screen. Miss Stacy was a strong, independent woman who always brought positive change. In real life, Marilyn Lightstone was a woman who struggled with loneliness and self-doubt. Today at 85, Marilyn Lightstone continues to be active in the arts through voice acting, writing, and painting. She has been living with her longtime partner Moses Znaimer, but the memories of past failed relationships have never faded. Her net worth is estimated at a whopping $5 million, a modest sum, considering her lifelong dedication to art. Jackie Burroughs as Mrs. Amelia Evans. Jackie Burroughs was 46 when she appeared in Anne of Green Gables playing Amelia Evans, a small but multi-layered role. Although her screen time was short, her sharp looks and piercing gaze made a lasting impression. In the sweet world of Anne Shirley, Amelia Evans stands out as a delicate creation that reflects the turbulent reality of Burroughs' own life. From there, both her artistic journey and her personal destiny led to a tragedy that few could have foreseen. Jackie Burroughs was born on February 2, 1939 in Southport, England, and emigrated with her family to Canada in 1951. Her fragmented childhood left her with a sense of alienation and insecurity, but also a strong determination to assert herself. Her artistic career began on small stages where she poured all her passion into her performances while absorbing her quiet loneliness. The emotional wounds of her past gave her a strong stage presence, but also cast a dark shadow over her that never faded in her private life. Her marriage to Zal Yanofsky, co-founder of The Lovin'. What is most profound is the connection between the role and her life. The character Amelia Evans, though small, exuded a sharpness and complexity that somewhat reflected the turbulent and introspective nature of Jackie Burroughs herself. However, that tumultuous journey had to come to an end. Jackie Burroughs died in Toronto on September 22, 2010 at the age of 71 after stomach cancer took her life. She left behind a net worth of approximately $800,000, a modest sum compared to the vast artistic legacy she created. Her death brought the talented actress' life to a close and left the public deeply saddened. Schuyler Grant as Diana Barry. Schuyler Grant was only 15 years old when she took on the role of Diana Barry. Her performance as Anne Shirley's gentle and loyal best friend earned Grant a special place in the hearts of fans and opened up a promising artistic path. However, her childhood fame also sent her into a spiral of pressure, as the overwhelming shadow of her family's fame and the sudden spotlight made her path to adulthood difficult and complicated. Schuyler Grant was born on April 29, 1971 in Los Gatos, California, into a distinguished family with ties to both history and the arts. Her aunt was screen legend Katharine Hepburn. This lineage meant she grew up surrounded by constant expectations and comparisons. She married Jeff Krasno in 1995, and they had 2 daughters, but their marriage eventually fell apart, leaving lasting emotional scars. The weight of family expectations, coupled with the uncertainty of her career, often forced Grant into an internal struggle. She had to choose between wanting to maintain her image as an actress and longing for a more peaceful escape. After leaving the screen, Schuyler Grant faced new challenges when she turned to yoga as a path to self-redemption, physical trauma, and, what is most profound, is the connection between the role and her life. On screen, Diana was a loyal friend, a simple and kind-hearted soul. In real life, Schuyler Grant had to go through a complex journey to find peace and balance after the pressures of fame and family. Today, at 55 years old, Schuyler Grant still works as a yoga instructor in New York. She runs her studio quietly, far from the pressures of fame and family power. Her fortune is estimated at $1 million, a modest sum, but enough to maintain a simple and peaceful life. Cedric Smith as Reverend Allen. At the age of 42, Cedric Smith took on the role of Reverend Allen, the stern but warm-hearted minister, who is seen as a symbol of morality and compassion. Although not a major role, Smith was remembered by audiences as a profound actor who brought calm and stability to Anne Shirley's dream world. However, behind this serious image was a private life full of turmoil and hidden wounds. Cedric Smith was born on September 21, 1943 in Bournemouth, Hampshire, England, before emigrating to Canada with his family at the age of 10. His childhood was filled with uncertainty as he adjusted to a new country, and feelings of alienation soon became part of his psyche. His artistic career began with music. He left school in 1961 to become a folk singer. But behind that passionate voice was a young man trying to fill the emotional void left by a loveless childhood. His marriage to actress Catherine Disher once gave Cedric Smith hope for a stable home. But when Disher was diagnosed with cancer in the 1990s, years of caregiving and ultimate loss devastated his life. Her death plunged Smith into despair, and he turned to alcohol as his only escape from the pain of loss. What is most profound is the complete contrast with the character's fate on screen. Reverend Allen was a man who brought peace and was a spiritual anchor. In real life, Cedric Smith was a man who had to face the storms of loss and pain. In 2025, Cedric Smith will be 82 years old, rarely seen in public, living a quiet life and still struggling with the ghosts of his past. His net worth is estimated at $1 million, largely thanks to his acting and music careers, but his greatest legacy remains his acting talent, particularly his portrayal of the lovable Reverend Allen in the film Charmian King as Aunt Josephine Barry. Charmian King played Aunt Josephine Barry, a wealthy and strict aunt who provides unexpected sympathy and support to Anne at the age of 60. Her portrayal made a lasting impression, making Aunt Josephine a key figure in Anne's coming-of-age story. But behind the glamour of the role, Charmian King's real life was marked by a sadness that shocked all who knew her. Charmian King was born on July 25, 1925, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Her childhood was far from the tales audiences were accustomed to on stage. It was characterized by discipline and expectations. In a family where love was often overshadowed by severity. From an early age, she learned to suppress her emotions, finding solace in art and her early performances. Her oppressive upbringing instilled in her a strong desire to express herself freely on stage, but also a fragile soul haunted by emptiness. Her marriage did not bring her the peace she desired. In 1962, she married actor Gordon Pinsent, and they had a daughter, but their life together remained filled with invisible distances. Illness, work pressures, and personality differences often led to isolation even at home. During these years, King suffered from what is most profound is the complete contrast with the characters' fate on screen. Aunt Josephine was a woman who found joy and connection late in life through Anne. In real life, Charmian King seemed to live a life full of distance and loneliness. However, that tumultuous journey had to come to an end. Charmian King died in Toronto on January 6, 2007, after complications from severe emphysema. She was 81 years old. Her estate was estimated at $700, a modest sum compared to the artistic legacy she left behind.